Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 207 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined this week by the elusive, the infamous Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how are you?
I'm good, Joe. Yourself?
Very good, my friend. Very good. It's good to have you back. Obviously, you disappeared on me again, out to France this time, if I'm not mistaken. Where did you go, Ayaz, anyway?
Oh, I went to Paris for like 2 days, just as a little break. So it was proper nice. It was nice. Enjoyed the scenery, but it's good to be back in the UK.
Good to be back. Good to have you back. Sometimes you need a break. All the hard work that you put in, Mr. Sumra, in life. Moving out though. With the review part of the show, we're going to start here at the Montreal Casino in Quebec, Canada. Last week, this one, obviously, I think it was on the Thursday night. A very good amateur, Batirzan Djukambiev, 16-0 his record was. Like I say, real good amateur. Stepped in there against the very tough Miguel Vasquez of Mexico. Miguel Vasquez now 41-9. I said I wanted him to get a bit lucky because obviously he shouldn't have beaten O'Hara Davies when he was on the wrong end of the decision, even in O'Hara Davies' mind as well, at the York Hall. And unfortunately the luck wasn't with him. He lost a unanimous decision over 10 rounds. It was for the vacant WBA Continental and the vacant IBF Intercontinental super lightweight belts there. Moving out now to the Royal Albert Hall. This one was the Friday night of last week. Let's start with the undercard, actually. Let's start with that. A good win for Dennis McCann, another TKO early for him, a second round TKO against Georgi Georgiev, now 8-16 with one draw. Georgiev was down in the first round and the second round. Dennis McCann now 4-0, a perfect record. Moving up once again, we got to see friend of the show, Willie Hutchinson, move to 10-0, double figures, a TKO in the second round for him also. That one was against Borislav Zankov, now 11-27 with one draw. I really do want to see Willie Hutchinson step it up because he was a great amateur, Willie Hutchinson, and I'd like to see them kind of take the same approach as a Zach Chelly, as a Umar Sadiq, as a Cody Davies, where they're matched early on with some good other domestic fighters, but it seems like they're kind of just feeding him journeyman after journeyman now, and we've heard about the bundles of potential that he's got. He's up in that Ingle camp. He's one of the most inexperienced in terms of pro fights in that camp there, and I just don't see why he's not being pushed on. He's sparring some brilliant fighters in that camp as well. I think he's done rounds with Billy Joe. I think he's done rounds with Liam Williams and stuff like that. So there's many, many big fights for him. And I just want to see him pushed on a little bit now, Willie Hutchinson. Still very young, though. Obviously, there's no real rush. Also on the bill, Denzel Bentley out of the Peacock Gym, 10-0. He took on Kelsey Ball, 10-1. I believe both men hadn't boxed anyone with a winning record going into this, or hadn't beaten anyone, I should say, with a winning record. I'm not so sure about Denzel Bentley. I'll have to check that one out. But Kelsey Ball, he had 10 wins against guys with losing records, and the one time he fought a guy with a winning record, he got knocked out in the first round, and it was a repeat performance here. He got knocked out in the first round by Denzel Bentley. He just simply couldn't match him at all. He was completely overwhelmed early, and he got beaten up, really. A win there, a good win there, actually, for Denzel Bentley, because, the record of Kelsey Ball is what it is, but it looks good on paper. He's beaten a guy in the first round there, and, Kelsey Ball, as harsh as it may seem, seems like a nice guy and all that, but 2 fights against guys with winning records, and he's been knocked out in a round each time. I mean, that's quite a bad stat there. Moving up the card once again, friend of the show, guest on last week's show, Archie Sharp, now 17-0. It was a defence successfully of his WBO European Super-Featherweight title. He took on Declan Geraghty, who was in search of win number 20, but it wasn't to be. He's now 19-5. But it was a good fight. It was a good performance from Geraghty. The first round was a clear round for him. I mean, already he was reddening up the nose of Archie Sharp. Archie seemed a bit heavy on his feet. He got caught square a few times. Maybe the southpaw stance of Geraghty was throwing him off a bit perhaps, and Geraghty landed some lovely straight left hands. He was really testing the chin of Sharp so early on. I was quite surprised to see Sharp, a little bit not at the races in the first round, to be honest. The second round, another round for Geraghty. Archie just seemed to be too patient. He wasn't doing enough. He was constantly getting beaten to the punch by the snappy Geraghty. Sharp hadn't really done anything by that point. The third round, that was where Sharp got cut on his left eye, and Geraghty, I think he was cut on the forehead just a little bit. It was another good round though for Geraghty. I mean, Archie did get through with a nice left hook at one point, but he was ultimately outworked, and it was an uphill battle already because it was only a 10-rounder, and I had it 3-0 in favour of Geraghty. But I will say, in that third round, for the first time, Archie was starting to come forward at the back end of that third round, and I think he needed to do that from the very start, to be honest. He was letting Geraghty be the man coming forward, and he was looking to try and counter, but he wasn't doing enough. And then in the fourth round, oh my lord, I mean, I definitely thought Sharp was winning the round at that point, but Geraghty got a little bit wild at times in the round, and Sharp was controlling things, and he needed to start turning it around, which he was, and then boom, what a left hook. Geraghty was instantly knocked out, and Howard Foster didn't even bother counting. What a shot. I was absolutely stunned. I mean, it was just a peach of a shot. It was a little bit scrappy because they were, I think Geraghty was kind of bending over. Archie was behind him. They were, Geraghty was trying to stay away from shots. Archie was winging him in, and then he came up and turned round, and he just walked, if you like, or not really walked into it, because he kind of had his back to Archie at the time, but he kind of just spun, turned right into the shot, boom. And it was night really for Geraghty, and you got to feel for him because he had such a bright start in that fight. But it is what it is in boxing. Sometimes the guys that are winning the fights get knocked out. Deontay Wilder, Tuba TJ said it on Twitter. So don't even let me steal what he said. He said it was like a Deontay Wilder kind of approach where he's losing the rounds and then he knocks the guy out. Yeah, very, very true. After a bit of celebrating, Archie was told, by Howard Foster, the referee, to calm down a bit, and it was nice to see the pair embrace after the fight. Great sportsmanship. They couldn't stop cuddling in that ring after the gloves had come off, and they're two good fighters and two good guys. So a good win there for Archie Sharp, despite losing a few rounds there. Also on the bill, Nicola Adams against Maria Salinas. It was for Adams' WBO World Female Flyweight title, her first defence after becoming champion outside of the ring. She got elevated from interim to full champion. Her record now 5-0 still, but with one minor blemish. It's a draw, 10 2-minute rounds, split draw, and Maria Salinas now 21-7 with 4 draws. That was her 4th draw. She felt she'd done enough, and quite unbelievably, I was very shocked. Half of, more than half it seemed, of the people in attendance there at the Royal Albert Hall were booing. I mean, they felt like Salinas had done enough. They agreed with her that she had a point of winning that one. For me, I felt like, I didn't really score it. The 2-minute rounds, I actually find that they should be easier to score, but for me, they're a little bit more difficult, because, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but I wasn't scoring it anyway. I've scored women's fights before. I wasn't scoring it, but I felt like Nicola probably did enough. I think the commentary was probably influencing me a bit. I trust Barry Jones to get it right. Again, Barry was on last week's show. Completely non-biased at all, Barry Jones, at all. And I felt like Nicola did just about do enough, to be honest. But the draw came. I think it was quite a fair thing to do. I think the judges, could have given it to Nicola. It was a close fight, but they didn't. They gave it a draw, and fair enough. But Salinas probably will feel hard done by. She's the one who had to travel, and this was her, her big chance on a big stage in a beautiful venue in London where boxing started in the UK, and she will feel robbed of what happened there. But it is what it is. I don't think it was a robbery. I think it was a close fight. Moving on though swiftly, because Nicola Adams, I hope she does give her a rematch, but it shouldn't have even been competitive. Nicola Adams is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. I mean, she's a living legend, to be honest. Her amateur career is just faultless, and it shouldn't have even been close. She should have absolutely blitzed this girl. People were saying she didn't do the weight well this time round. I think she's had a few things going on outside of the ring. I think someone said her mother was sick. I think she had a relationship fall apart, all stuff like that. But yeah, you've got to shuttle that out, as hard as it may be, when you're under those lights, like Luke Campbell did against Linares. That factor that he lost his father in the build-up to that fight didn't really seem to play a part, because he was unbelievable that night. And I'd like to see a rematch, just to be fair. Give Salinas another chance. Daniel Dubois, though, 13-0, a knockout in the first round against Ebenezer Tete. 19-0 himself going in, now 19-1. It was for the vacant WBO International Heavyweight title and, of course, the vacant Commonwealth title. Tete down twice in that first round. Ayaz, I've flown through everything on this card here. If there's anything you want to say about any of the fights, including the Dubois fight, just talk to me.
In Dubois, I think, to be fair, is the next big thing, obviously. I mean, what a knockout again. I mean, I think he's going to be a future world champion in the world.
Yeah, you've said it before, and you've said it again there. Going into that fight, I mean, I did think it was another tough African guy, like Geraghty. They are tough. They are real tough and stubborn. But he got in there, and as the referee called them together just before the fight started, in the middle of the ring, to touch gloves and explain the basic rules and that on camera, the body language from Tete was awful. I mean, he didn't want to look Dubois in the eyes. He kept his head down. He very slowly walked back to his corner. He didn't have his gum shield in. The referee had to tell him that he'd forgotten it. And I just thought to myself, he's going to get done here. He's going to get done pretty quickly. And it was a one-round job. I mean, he was down twice. It was waved off when he got up. He was a tough guy, but obviously no match for young Daniel there. An easy win, if we're being honest. He blew the guy away, and I don't really want to see him in there with an unknown African again. I want to see him in there with the bigger names, Nathan Gorman, the win over him, I felt like he could really push on with some momentum, but it's another drop down. I know it was for the Commonwealth, so hopefully there's no more of that, because he doesn't need to fight any more guys like that. We want to see the Joyce fight like they're talking about and stuff. So let's bring it on. I'm all for that. Moving on, we're going to leave the Royal Albert Hall and fly straight to the H Arena in France, Ayaz. You may have been there, not quite sure. I don't think it was in Paris, this one. But anyway, top of the bill, Tony Yoka, now 7-0. A third-round TKO against the German Michael Wallisch, who's now 20-3. Wallisch, a decent fighter, but whenever he steps up against a guy with a big enough name, he gets beaten pretty badly. I think it's 3 knockout losses now in his last 3 or 4 fights, so yeah, not very good for him. Also on the bill, very good young prospect Solomon Sissoko. I think he's young, certainly young in terms of his experience in the pro ranks, but a good amateur, like I say. 11-0 now, a complete shutout win over 10 rounds against Dmitry Mikalenko, so that's quite a good win there for Sissoko. Moving out now to Germany at the Stadthalle in Sachsen-Anhalt, friend of the... Well, he's not actually a friend of the show. I'd be lying. Friend of Tyson Fury, former opponent of Tyson Fury, Tom Schwartz. He returned with a win here. His opponent retired after 6 rounds. His opponent, Ilya Mezhenchev, now 20-2. And Tom Schwartz, 26-1. It was actually for a belt. It was the vacant IBF International Heavyweight title. So all the best there to Tom Schwartz. Moving out now to the Bilbao Arena in País Vasco, Spain. A rematch, obviously, against David Avanesian and Kerman Leharaga. That one was for Avanesian's EBU European welterweight title. That was the belt he took away from Leharaga. Leharaga had a fight in between the two fights, and the rematch here happened. And I expected Avanesian to go out there and knock his man out like he did the first time, but I didn't see it coming as early as the first round, and that is what happened. Leharaga was down twice in the first round, a TKO in the very first round, so Avanesian now proves it wasn't no kind of fluke, and he proves again he's a brilliant fighter, Avanesi. I'm very, very underrated. I'm glad that Barry Jones brought up that point on last week's show. Very, very, very much a who needs him club type of fighter, but he's the EBU European champion, so there are going to be a few guys that need him if they want to progress. And interestingly, Josh Kelly obviously was set to fight him before, and then Josh Kelly had to pull out. I think it was on the day of the fight, or was it just after the weigh-in? I can't remember. And that fight didn't happen, but now he's actually been made mandatory for the EBU title, so that is a fight that will be ordered in the next few days or weeks, but very soon, so it'll be interesting to see if that fight does happen. That's it though for Spain. Moving out now to the let's go here at the Eagles Community Arena in Newcastle, United Kingdom. Thomas Patrick Ward, again, fantastic fighter, now 28-0, a win against Yesna Talavera. I can't keep excusing Ward for these poor opponents. He was boxing a guy who'd lost his last 6 in a row, so it could have even been more than that, but I can see his last 6 fights he lost all 6, and it was a points win, a complete shutout win there for Thomas Patrick Ward. Not quite sure what he really gains from a win like that against a guy like that, but interestingly on the bill, friend of the show Andrew Selby, now 13-1. It was a points win over 8 rounds against Fadili Majiha, who, again, will feel very hard done by. Majiha now 24-14 with 4 draws. Andrew Selby, he'd boxed in Dubai not that long before that. I think it was it maybe 2 weeks earlier or something like that. So he didn't have all the time to prepare for this guy, but he was expected to win easy. It wasn't easy at all. He was down twice in the fight, Selby. Unbelievable. He was down in the first round, I think it was, and I think he was down in the 6th round. I think he was cut as well, but he scraped out a points win over 8 rounds, and a lot of people saying he was very, 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 very lucky there to get that. Very lucky. So that's quite shocking for me. Andrew Selby is one of my favourite fighters to watch. He's a guy that, when he turned pro, I thought he is 100% going to be a world champion. And, obviously fouled when he boxed in that final eliminator. He didn't beat what was the guy's name? Julio Cesar Martinez Aguilar. He didn't beat him. He come unstuck there in a fight he was winning. Altitude and stuff like that got in the way. Fair enough. But then he fights a guy like this who he's expected to just blow out, and it was a life and death fight. So I hope he hasn't just missed the bus or missed the train, if you like. What a fighter, and what a shame if he ends up not winning a world title. But let's not really go there. He is still early in his pro career. Like I said, it was only his 14th fight. Still got many, many fights to have if he wants them. Moving out now to the Staples Center in LA, California, USA. This one is the final bill to mention. Let's start with the undercard. A win in the very first round, a knockout there for Fabian Maidana, the brother of Marcos. He's now 17-1. The win came against Ramses Agaton, who's now 21-11 with 3 draws. Also on the bill, Robert the Ghost Guerrero, a win against Gerald Thomas, who was only 14-1 with 1 draw. Not a knockout though. It was a 10-round unanimous decision, pretty much a shutout. 9 rounds to 1 on 2 cards, 8 rounds to 2 on the other for Robert the Ghost Guerrero. That was his 36th win. He's got 6 losses and a draw. Also on the bill, Josecito Lopez against John Molina Jr. A fight that I thought it'd be a real war, and it was quite one-sided really for Lopez. He had Molina down in the first round and the 7th round, but the KO came in the 8th round against John Molina Jr., friend of the show, now 30-9, and Josecito Lopez 37-8. Molina to be down. I said it was once in the first round. I think it was it was twice in the first round he was down. Yeah, and it was a massive right hand by Lopez for the first knockdown. I couldn't believe that John Molina got up, because watching the replay, the impact was incredible, and the second knockdown was actually a body shot. And I do have to say, it looked like John Molina wanted to get counted out. He stayed down. He really did stay down to the very, very last little second. And when he got up, the referee could have actually said 10 and counted it off, but he gave him a real chance. He said 9.5, and he let him carry on. And, Molina did have a couple moments where he would whip in, a big shot here and there, but he just had zero defence. He was so slow. It was like a drunk guy fighting in a car park. And, in the second round, it was another round for Lopez. He couldn't miss with the right hand. He would throw a 1-2 and he would land every single shot every time. I mean, Molina, obviously, he's got the chin of steel. And, he's a tough guy. He stood there as long as he physically could. And he would have tried to carry on if he could as well. He did start coming back into the fight in rounds 4, 5, 6, stuff like that. Molina's success did prove to be short-lived, though, and Lopez came on top once again. He managed to drop Molina, like I say, for the final time in the 7th round. And Molina got up, he got through the round. The doctor wanted to stop it. There was a bit of a debate. Molina was begging to carry on. They let him carry on. And then, when he did come out, the referee just ended up jumping in because Molina took a few clean shots without really landing anything meaningful. And, the referee saved him really for another day, or perhaps no other day. I don't really think he should carry on after that. So that's that one there. Mario Barrios against Batir Akhmedov for the vacant WBA Super or World Super Lightweight title, they call it. Very, 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 very good fight there. Barrios, I felt, was really controlling things early on. Great patience and variety in his work. He was on the back foot a few times while Akhmedov was coming forward, putting the pressure on in that southpaw stance. And, he was feinting as well, which I like to see. Akhmedov, it was brilliant pressure, but Barrios wasn't worried, he wasn't uncomfortable. It was nice work from him. Like I say, controlling it early on. In the 4th round, Barrios hurt his man pretty early. The leg just buckled a little bit from Akhmedov. Barrios then went on the hunt. He applied some smart pressure. He didn't get desperate. He didn't overcommit. And he ended up making Akhmedov actually touch down. So it was a 10-8 round there in the 4th. Barrios then got on the front foot. That was a good sign. He started to, control things even more. The pair engaged a few times in what was a real exciting round in that 4th round. My criticism of Barrios, though, is that he's got the willingness to exchange a bit too often. He gives the smaller man a big chance when he does that. And in that 4th round, like I said, there was a few times he could have just got himself in a bit of trouble there. Akhmedov started then to take over, the constant pressure from him. He managed to swing the momentum in his favour. Barrios started neglecting his jab. He ended up finding it hard to keep Akhmedov off of him, and that resulted in Barrios losing a few rounds on the spin. Round 9 particularly was a hard round to score. Barrios perhaps won the round, but I'm not sure if it was influenced by 1, Matthew Macklin saying it, and 2, Barrios having the best round he'd had for about 5 rounds, because, like I say, Akhmedov probably won round 5, 6, 7 and 8, and that 9th round was just a little bit hard to score. Round 10, again, Akhmedov came out straight away applying the pressure. He was outworking Barrios. He was smothering Barrios. Barrios clearly slowed down. He was feeling the pace. He seemed to be totally spent in the second half of the round, and Akhmedov was all over him like a rash, and Barrios had no answer really, no energy. I've written here as well, it was such a shame to see a brilliant start to the fight all perhaps ending up being for nothing because he was so badly under pressure. It looked like he could end up getting stopped, and the in-play betting was quite interesting looking at that. They assumed that Barrios was going to end up getting stopped. In the 12th round, the Sky commentary and myself had it totally level. It was all on the last round on my card and on Sky's card, and it was unbelievable because Barrios hit Akhmedov right on the button, and Akhmedov touched down once again, a round in which Akhmedov certainly was winning, and he'll absolutely kick himself, in my opinion, because for me, on my card at least, that let the whole thing flip round, Barrios literally, for me anyway, won the fight on that one punch, and I felt like Barrios especially will learn so much from that. He was more experienced as a pro, but Akhmedov had that insane amateur experience which Barrios didn't have, and I was surprised Barrios was actually the favourite going into it, to be honest, and throughout it as well. I actually cashed in on, I think it was the 11th round or the 10th round, for Barrios to win in a fight which at that point I felt was level, but I thought he might just get a favour on the cards. So even though he might not be winning the rounds as it was standing, like round 11 and 12 to go, he might still lose those 2 rounds, but I still thought the judges might just do him a favour. It was 16-1. I only put £1 on it, but that obviously came in because he managed to win it. For me, he did win it just on that last punch in the last round. That one punch that he landed, that literally on my card gave him the fight. But the scorecards were way too wide. They'd done him a massive favour when they didn't need to. So the right man won, but the scorecards were too wide for me. Moving up once again. What do we have? Let's talk about two friends of the show boxing. Actually, Anthony Dirrell was dethroned. He's now 33-2 with one draw. It was a knockout in the 9th round against David Benavidez. The champion regains his title. He's now a 2-time WBC World Super-Middleweight champion. He holds the record of the youngest ever WBC World champion, or the youngest ever Super-Middleweight World champion. One of those. Brilliant stat to have under your belt. He's now 22-0. Yeah, I mean, Dirrell was cut on his right eye from a punch in the 6th round, and then Dirrell's corner stopped the fight during that 9th round. Yeah, I mean, Benavidez wasn't respecting Dirrell's power at all. He was laughing at him. Dirrell wasn't really falling for the mind game, so credit to that. I actually felt he boxed pretty well at the start of the fight, Dirrell. You know, Benavidez was constantly walking forward, but Dirrell was boxing nicely, I felt. I felt like he probably won a couple of the early rounds as well, really. In the 3rd round, you know, the round started nicely again from Dirrell, but as it went on, Benavidez did start to take over. There was one spell where Benavidez trapped Dirrell in the corner, and he was just landing nice shot after nice shot with both hands. That's one of his brilliant things that he's got. He can land great shots. He can punch with both hands as well. And, you know, Dirrell did try and tuck up and counter each time, but Benavidez would take half a step back and make him miss and then land another shot. It was a beautiful, beautiful little few seconds there of boxing from Benavidez. Dirrell, like I say, wasn't really boxing badly. He was boxing intelligently. He wasn't getting the credit I felt from the commentary team. I felt like he did win a handful of those early rounds. Round 5 was a brilliant round for Benavidez. It's really where he started to take over. Like I say, in the 6th round, that was where we saw the cut on Dirrell's eye, just above his... I think it was on his eyelid, just above his eyeball, and it was a bad cut. You know, he bravely carried on after a couple of inspections from the doctor, and yeah, the corner did end up stopping the fight when Benavidez was starting to swarm Dirrell, and Dirrell just wasn't firing back. So a good stoppage at the right time. He showed courage, which we don't always say for the Dirrells, if I'm being completely honest. You know, they've had their tendencies to you know, find ways out of fights and stuff like that, but without being critical, good performance from him until the cut happened. And you know, Benavidez, I think, was always going to win that fight. I was surprised it actually went 9 rounds. There was a few times where Benavidez didn't impress everyone. I think Caleb Plant tweeted out a few things. I'd love to see that fight. I want to see the unifications now. I think David Benavidez does also, because he told me that he wants the unifications when we had him on a while back. But yeah, moving up now to the main event, and this one was a fantastic fight. The final fight to mention of the review part. It ended up being a split decision win over 12 rounds in favour of Errol Spence, still undefeated, 26-0. It was for his IBF World Welterweight title and Sean Porter's WBC World Welterweight title. The scorecards, 116-111 twice for Errol Spence and 115-112 for Sean Porter. Sean Porter's record now 30-3 with one draw. The first round, I actually missed. Enzo Macronelli said that Porter won the round, so I thought, okay, I just gave him that round on that. So my scorecard, I did have it in the end to Spence, but I'll get onto it. The second round for me, brilliant action. It was a Porter round though, so I had him 2 up with the help of Enzo Mac. The third round was a bit of a wild round. The pair exchanged vicious shots on the inside. I actually felt like Spence won the round. The fourth round, it was turning into a bit of a Hagler versus Hearns, which Barry Jones, I think, said on last week's show, it could be a Hagler-Hearns. He got it dead right. There were glimpses of that in the fourth round. I felt like Porter won the round, though, 3-1 after 4. I was starting to think, is Porter exposing Spence? I mean, I'd said it many times. It was the first proper challenging welterweight fight that Spence had. The fifth round was a Spence round, you know, cleaner work of the two in that round. He kept it on the outside for most of the round. He didn't let Porter get close. It was great intelligence there from Errol Spence. So 3-2. The sixth round was a real close round. I felt like both men were landing bombs to the body especially, but I gave the round to Spence. So that is 3-3. The 7th round, definitely Porter won that round. Beautiful body shots. You know, some of the body shots looked a little bit low, but they were great shots. Round 8, again, a Spence round, but a very, 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 very much action-packed round. Round 9 I gave to Porter. Round 10 I gave to Porter. Round 11, that was obviously where the left hook that Spence landed just made Porter touchdown. It was a big moment, especially on my card. It was a 10-8 round I gave there to Spence. And then in the 12th round, Spence won that as well. So what's that? That's... let me calculate there. I gave Porter 6 rounds, and I gave Spence 6 rounds as well, but obviously the 10-8. So real close on my card. But a great action-packed fight, and arguably fight of the year. Let's just quickly discuss this though for a second. I felt like, you know, it was Spence's first real proper test against a true welterweight. Again, I know people are going to say, hey, he fought Kell Brook, but Kell Brook, you know, he was coming down from middleweight. He was coming down after taking a bashing, really, from Gennady Golovkin. He nearly lost his eye, and you know, he was giving a good account of himself in that fight till it got stopped. I hate saying that. I've said that a million times on this show. An actual proper welterweight, a true career welterweight, was Sean Porter, and this was a real test for Spence. And to be honest, I felt like Keith Thurman beat Spence in better fashion. I felt like Kell Brook himself beat Porter in better fashion, sorry. So Kell Brook and Keith Thurman, in my opinion, beat Porter in better fashion than Spence did. But obviously, styles make fights. Spence was brilliant. He showed that, you know, he really does have the dog in him. But yeah, it wasn't easy. And I would love to now see Porter fight Terence Crawford, or Terence Crawford obviously to fight Spence. That's what I'd love to see. That's the best fight that can be made at 147. I also want to see Keith Thurman as well against one of those guys. I want to see Manny Pacquiao involved as well. He looked good after beating Thurman. So there's some brilliant fights once again that can be made at 147. But I think the main fights are against the three at the very top. Manny Pacquiao, obviously after beating Keith Thurman, otherwise I'd have said Keith Thurman. So Manny Pacquiao right up there, Crawford right up there, and Spence right up there. Those three, anyone can fight anyone. I'd love to see those fights. Yes, I would. I am, even though, you know, Manny Pacquiao be giving away a lot of size to Spence, I still think that's a great fight. Spence Pacquiao, Spence Crawford, Crawford Pacquiao, give it to me anyway there. Obviously Spence has already announced his next opponent. It's going to be Danny Garcia. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Ayaz, anything on the card? Benavidez, Spence, talk to me about anything on the card, and then we'll just talk briefly about Danny Garcia and Errol Spence, the next fight.
I mean, it was a great performance. It was a brilliant fight. Sean Porter versus Errol Spence. Obviously, I think Errol Spence is actually the real deal, and I think he's gonna. The fight I'd love to see is versus him versus Crawford. I think that'd be a super fight. But obviously, he's just announced that he'll be fighting Danny the Swift Garcia.
Yeah, an interesting fight. Again, though, I hate to say it, but it's another smaller guy. I know that Danny's been at 147 for a while. He's got a couple decent wins. He gave a good account against Keith Thurman, but he got beat. He gave a decent account against Sean Porter, but he got beat. It's not really the fight I want to see. He does bring a different style to those guys. He's a good boxer, Danny Garcia, but he's not going to have any match for Errol Spence, I don't think. I don't really see the point. You know, I'd like to see Spence against Keith Thurman instead, or as you mentioned, Crawford or Pacquiao, or even someone like a Ugas. You know, there's many guys I prefer than the Danny Garcia fight. I just think he's been beaten a few times, Danny Garcia, and what's really the point? He's given away size. You know, I don't think he's really got the power. It seems like Errol Spence has got a real good chin. I don't think Danny's got the power. I don't think he has got the output to match him. I just don't see it being an interesting fight. I think Danny loses it quite bad. I think he probably might even get stopped in that fight. It is what it is. You know, it's another former champion, I suppose, for Errol Spence, but it's just not a fight I want to see. It's not a fight I want to see, but you know what? The way he beat Porter, it was a brilliant fight. I give him all the credit, I really do. He beat him on my card as well. Again, I think the cards were a tad wide. Well, one of them was to Porter, but the others, you know, they were, I think it was 5-point gap, so that was very wide. But yeah, I mean, he is one of the best at 147, Spence. But you watch that performance there, and it was a tough fight. Definitely the toughest fight of his career. I can't put him in my pound for pound top 10. I just don't think I can get him in there. I think he's probably 11 or 12 or 13, but I can't get him in my top 10, Errol Spence. Maybe I'm a bit of an Errol Spence hater without realising it, but I don't know. I want to give him credit, but these fights, I mean, if he'd have knocked him out, I said it. I expected him to win on points, but I said I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the knockout over Porter late on, because again, people forget Porter was down against Broner. You know, Porter was he down against Ugas even? I can't remember. But you know, Errol Spence is a big puncher. He's huge for the weight. Again, the size was apparent once again in all of his fights. The size is apparent. Spence, he's so massive, and he fights all these shorter guys, but he wasn't really able to hurt Porter at any point. And because it was such a rough and tumble fight, he didn't beat him unbelievably well. So I don't think he is in my top 10 pound for pound. Sean Porter's nowhere near my top 10 or top 40 pound for pound. So if it was such a close fight, how can you put him up there? You know, he had the advantages of the height and the size and the power and, you know, all that stuff. But how can you put him in your top 10? I question people. If I'm saying something wrong, if I'm being too critical, let me know on Twitter. We always welcome a friendly and respectable debate at BoxHard Podcast on Twitter. That is about everything, though, for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap it up, the final thing to do is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning WBO Super-Featherweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Jamel Herring. Jamel, my man, welcome back on the show.
Hey, it always good to be back, man. Always good to speak with you, brother.
Same to you, my friend. Same to you. We last spoke back in May. It was right after the win, obviously, over Ito, a fight I don't think I'll ever forget. In the meantime, I feel like, you know, not only yourself, also your fans have had to be pretty patient. We've had to kind of wait a little while to find out what your next move would be. I think you were waiting as well. It hasn't been that long, to be honest, but I want to ask, has it sunk in yet, Jamel? Do you feel like a world champion now? Are you getting that well-deserved recognition finally?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm getting that recognition, and more importantly, the respect aspect. But I'm still hungry. You know, I still want more. I still want to accomplish more, obviously, in my career.
Absolutely. And you seemed like you wanted to try and land a unification fight rather than a mandatory or a voluntary defense of your title. Obviously, the man you seemed to be chasing for a while was Miguel Berchelt. Why did you want him of all people, though, Jamel? Because some would say he's probably the best fighter at super featherweight, and you'd have been a big underdog in that fight, all in what would have been just your first defense straight away.
And that's the whole purpose of it. I wanted to be basically, you know, if I was going to be a world champion, I wanted to obviously shoot for the number one spot, at least in my division. And obviously, Miguel Berchelt holds that number one spot on a lot of people's, you know, on rankings. If you look at, you know, ESPN's ranking, Ring Magazine has him as number one. So that was basically the main reason why, you know, I wanted to go for that title, because, you know, I've been an underdog plenty of times. You've seen that even the last fight with Ito, I was underdog. But, you know, I wanted to showcase that I'm not a champion that just wants to hold on to a belt. You know, I'm willing to go out there and risk it all, and just to you know, and continue to push myself to compete with the best out there.
Yeah, for sure. I thought you might say that, to be honest, but obviously the fight didn't come to fruition. You've now been ordered to face your mandatory. Jamel, your mandatory is the undefeated Lamont Roach Jr. What do you know about your man here?
Actually, I've known Lamont for well over a decade. We sparred a few times in the past, so like I said, I'm very familiar with his style. And I used to train out there in the area, in the DC area, when I was with Mike Stanford and Adrian Broner camp a few years back. So I'm very familiar with my opponent. And I'm actually you know, motivated and looking forward to this fight.
And obviously Roach has got a pretty good amateur career. You know, he's a young guy, but very seasoned, you know, for being a young guy, obviously with that amateur experience. He's obviously undefeated as a pro, like I say. This kind of fight gives me the feeling that this will be two good boxers going at it. It won't necessarily be a boxer and a puncher like times in that Ito fight. This will more likely be skill against skill. Am I right there?
Yeah, and it's sort of an aspect. I actually plan on, doing a few different things with this fight. Like I said, I want to, obviously, of course, I'm a natural boxer, but, I want to also, test myself and work on some other things as well. So that's why I've been, preparing for this camp in a different manner than the last camp with Ito.
And just to remind people, the fight takes place on November 9th in Fresno, California. Ticket prices start as low as just $29. And also,
right.
This is something I read online, Jamel. Confirm if this is correct. If you're a veteran or actively working in the armed forces in the States, then Jamel Herring will give you up to 4 tickets for free for you and your family. Am I right in saying that?
Oh yeah, like this is like basically like a gift, to the public. We want to give back, especially to our armed forces, veterans and active duty men and women. We just want people to come out and have a good time. We're not focused so much on, trying to make a quick buck. We want to get people out there and just to have a good time. If at least for at least one night, people can come together and just enjoy what's taking place in front of them.
That's a fantastic thing, man. I really hope the place fills up and there's lots and lots of, Marines and stuff like there always is, to be honest, for your fights, Jamel. But that's a lovely thing there that you've done.
Right.
I'm sure that you happen to watch ESPN Plus on Friday night. If so, did you get to see Archie Sharp against Declan Geraghty? If so, what did you make of it, Jamel?
Yeah, I got to watch it. Actually, it's funny. Like as soon as I actually clicked on the app, his fight happened to pop up. I actually got lost track of the whole fight we scheduled because I'm in training camp, so I actually surprised that to catch a good a card that night. But I caught the fight, and he like I said he finished well. I'll give him that. I can't take nothing from him. He finished. He did what he had to do. He got the W. You can't diminish that, and he did it in a spectacular fashion. It was only maybe a few things that I picked up that that he could have probably did a lot better in between from the beginning of the fight to the time I got the knockout. But overall, like I said, I'm not here to bash anybody. Like I said, the guy got the win, and is basically is on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he didn't start the fight well. He probably lost every round, to be honest, until that shot.
Yeah, and that's I think just a lot of too much waiting. Too much waiting. He gave his opponent a little too much confidence. But like I said, in the end, he got the job done. That's all that matters. But there's still a lot to improve on and to work on in the future. But like I said, a W is a W at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. And also, I'm sure you must have tuned in Spence against Porter the other night. One of the best fights I've seen in a long, long time. What did you make of it? I know you must have watched it, Jamel.
Oh yeah, of course. Like I said, I couldn't miss that. Errol was, one of my Olympic teammates from 2012 U.S. team, and I've known Sean and his father for well over many years now as well. So I mean, it was a great fight. You could probably, argue says probably one, it could be a good candidate for a fight of the year, depending, how the rest of the year goes. But it definitely was, eye-opening to a lot of people. But I actually, I've been saying this for a long time that I felt that Errol would get the win, but I knew it wouldn't come easy. And sure enough, Sean didn't make it an easy fight, and it didn't go from a ugly fight. It was actually, a real tactical, toe-to-toe action, brawl.
It was a brilliant fight, and you're right when you say that. I mean, talking of fight of the year, I mean, it's right up there. It probably is. Well, it's probably second, actually, behind Ito Herring.
I still need a dance partner that's gonna really, really push me like that. But I definitely will put it. That's definitely one of the best fights that I've seen this year so far.
Yeah, me too. I want to ask you this question. I'm going to be quite tricky the way I ask it here. How would your gym mate Terence Crawford get on with Porter? Because I know that you're good friends with Spence. You're good friends with Crawford. They're both your guys. So you probably won't tell me who wins if they fought each other. You're going to probably sit on the fence. So I'm going to be smart and say, would Crawford have an easier time with Porter than Spence had?
I mean, I'll be honest and say I don't think anybody has an easier time with Sean Porter, especially if you look at it. Sean Porter is the type of fighter that basically he comes to bring his best when his back is against the wall and people are counting him out. Because if you look at the Ugas fight, a lot of people maybe have felt that Ugas had won that fight and Sean had, a down, bad performance that night, But when the odds were up against him and it was time for him to step up to the plate, he really stepped it up in his whole game. And, people aren't talking about how he looked in the Ugas fight. You know what I mean? So I really can't say that, even if Bud was in there with him, that it'll be, easier. But I'm pretty sure, he would approach it a lot different. But at the end of the day, Sean Porter brings his best against A-level opposition out there.
Yeah, fair comment. Again, I don't think anyone has ever looked sensational against him. He's so hard to look good against. I think the only man that I actually said that got the best of him, and he actually made me become a fan, was Kell Brook. Kell Brook boxed the perfect, in my opinion, a perfect fight against Sean. And at the time, Kell was basically unknown in the States. So I guess, I don't know, a lot of people underestimated Kell's ability, because we all knew around that time Kell was coming off, he had a lot of delays from getting his title shot with the injuries and everything. So I don't think people gave Kell much of a chance coming to the States. But I believe that Kell Brook physically was stronger because he neutralized Sean's aggression. And he basically kept Sean on the end of a stick. And every time Sean tried to get in to bully Kell Brook, he basically tied him up and pushed him back. So I think Kell Brook, till this day, is maybe the only man that's really giving Sean a lot of problems. But in terms of Sean when he fought Keith Thurman and Spence, those were some very tough, rough fights for both men. Yeah, very true. And finally, Jamel, just want to throw it over to you as always. If you've got any closing words to our listeners just before we let you go, just send a message.
Like I said, man, I love the everything that's going on that side of the that side of the world. Like I said, the UK fans have always showed me a love of sport, so I would never go out there and disrespect that fan base. And this is another reason why I love speaking with you. Every time you hit me up about an interview or anything, it's just a chat, I'm always available for you, man. Because like I said, you've helped me get my name out there a lot, and I really appreciate the sport. And I know, and I have to address it, because like you said, man, I know people ask me when this whole thing with the Archie situation. I was like, I acknowledge him, I see him, and I'm happy that he's doing what he's doing. So I'm not going to be that type of champion that said he's a nobody, and be just disrespectful. No, I acknowledge the man. Like I said, I tuned into his fight. I just think that I don't know. Like I said, we all know boxing comes with the powers to be, as I may say. So, like I said, I could see that fight happening in the future. Don't get me wrong, but like I said, to give you a good gem, I think on my end, I believe if all goes well, at least with the title defense in November, I know that Carl Frampton was a name that was brought to my attention as well, and that potentially could happen on St. Patrick's Day out here in the States in 2020. So there are potential fights, basically line up for me. But I do, like I said, I do have my sights on everyone that basically calls my name or who's moving up the ladder.
Could be some big nights for you then. It could be Carl Frampton on St. Patrick's Day. Archie Sharp, perhaps, on the Fury Wilder undercard in February.
Yeah, I mean, and I heard people, actually, fans, mention that as well. But like I said, I just gotta, me, man. I don't like to look ahead too far, because I have to keep, Lamont is a decent opponent. Like I said, I believe that I will get past this fight, hands down, at the end of the day. But I still have to remain focused and just stay humble and grounded and continue to carry myself as a champion.
Absolutely, Jamel, absolutely. But listen, it is always a pleasure speaking with you, my brother. Best of luck for November 9th out there in Fresno, and we'll no doubt catch up right after.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Ayaz, what you got?
On November the 23rd, John Ryder will face Callum Smith for the world title, for Callum Smith's WBO world title.
Yes, a fight that's been talked about for a while. Obviously, John Ryder's managed to work his way up to the mandatory position. John Ryder, friend of the show, Callum Smith, friend of the show. We're hopefully going to be speaking to John Ryder at some point later on in the show. Hopefully we can get him on. I've reached out, so if it happens, then it will happen. But yeah, it's a tough fight for John. You know, we got to remember he's looking so brilliant since he's moved up to super-middleweight. He's one of the most improved fighters in world boxing. I've said it many times. But, you know, he lost at middleweight to Nick Blackwell. He got stopped there. And, you know, fighting someone as big as Callum Smith, he's going to be giving away so much size there. And Callum Smith, you know, arguably the very best super middleweight in the world, you know. So it's a tough fight. John is up against it. I just, you know, I feel sorry for John because, like I say, he's improved so much. And, you know, I want to see him make something of his career, you know, because he's had a few hard fights in a row. He's took some real hard routes, you know, and fights to get to a world title. He's took the hard road. He really has. And he's been knocking people out on the way, and he's looked unbelievable. So, you know, people have done a lot less and got a world title shot probably twice over. So I want to see him do well here, but he is up against it. He is the underdog. Hopefully we speak to him a bit later.
And finally, the last news is that Deontay Wilder will face Luis Ortiz in a rematch on November the 23rd.
Yes, that one, of course, for Wilder's WBC heavyweight world title. Don't really see the point in it, to be honest. I mean, the first fight was good. Luis Ortiz had a good few moments in there. Respect to Wilder for not going down. I don't know how he stayed up, Wilder. That was where he really showed us he's actually got a way better chin than what we thought. But yeah, should be decent. But Ortiz, I mean, he hasn't looked great since then. He's had a couple fights where he didn't look great. I think it was Christian Hammer and Travis Kaufman. He just didn't really look that good in those fights. He's getting much older, and no one really knows how old he is. He's got to be older than 50. I mean, I saw a picture of him the other day with his hairstyle a bit different, and he just looks like an old dad hanging around with like his son's friends. You know, like the boxers that are near him. You know, like when he did the face-off with Wilder. Wilder still looks like a young, healthy young man. You know, a fit guy. And you've got him. He just looks like Wilder's dad. It is what it is. He's a good fighter though. He can fight well for a 50-something-year-old man. But it is what it is. Hopefully it's a good fight. But you know, hopefully Wilder wins, to be honest, because I don't really see the point in it. I think Wilder will win, but it'll be interesting. Hopefully Luis Ortiz starts fast and just tries to go for it. He probably will get a couple of opportunities. It'd be interesting. It is what it is. It's heavyweight boxing. It's a decent fight. It's a good opponent, but I don't really like watching a rematch ever unless the first fight was a real close fight, but it ended in knockout. He did have a moment. You know, Wilder come through the storm and he knocked him out, so no real need to see it again.
And that's it for the news.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayaz. Let's talk about the preview part of the show now. We're going to start here. A card that's happening tomorrow night is part of this golden contract thing at the York Hall in Bethnal Green. Firstly, on the undercard, a heavyweight fight that's gone under the radar. George Fox, that's the son of Don Charles, 2-0 as a professional. It's a 4-rounder against Dorian Darch from Wales. That could be a good fight there. Dorian Darch 12-10 with one draw, better than his record suggests. Very tough and gutsy guy. Also on the bill, obviously the way they did this, the fighters got to draw. Like I think they had 4 blue balls and 4 red balls in a bag, and the fighters put their hands in, and whoever I think drew a blue ball got to choose their opponent. So it's a real interesting one here. So in the end, Lee Wood, obviously with his record 22-1, he is what is he? Is he the Commonwealth champion? I think is he the Commonwealth champion? Yeah, he's a Commonwealth champion. He drew a blue ball and he decided to choose David Oliver Joyce, obviously the undefeated, very good amateur. That is a brilliant fight. He probably picked the toughest guy he could have picked there. Brilliant fight there. Lee Wood 22-1, David Oliver Joyce 11-0. Jazza Dickens chose Carlos Ramos. James Jazza Dickens, friend of the show, 27-3. Carlos Ramos 11-1. Heron Sucaris, he is the Cuban boxer. He holds a record of 22-0 with 3 draws. Good amateur. He decided to choose Ryan Walsh, the British champion, 24-2 with 2 draws. Again, that could be a brilliant fight. And finally, Tyrone McCulloch, 13-0. He chose Carlos Araujo, who has a record of 15-1. So some great fights. They're all over 10 rounds. Obviously, the winners then face each other in the next round, so that could be quite exciting. Also, the undefeated prospect, I believe he's still fighting on the bill, Sam Gilly, 9-0. He's in a 6th-rounder, no opponent just yet. Moving out now to the Doncaster Dome in Yorkshire, United Kingdom. Friend of the show, Gavin McDonnell, former world title challenger, 2 times over. His record 21-2 because his 2 losses came at world level. He's got 2 draws. He's in an 8-rounder against Nathan Kirk, who's 12-4. Moving out now to Denmark. We've got 1 fight over here. Friend of the show, Ashley Fearfane, part of his world tour, 47-8 with 1 draw. He's in a 10-rounder against Kasim Umar, who's 29-13 with 1 draw. All the best there to Ashley. And this one happens at the Action Indoor Sports, which is, I think, also called the Whitchurch Leisure Centre in Bristol, United Kingdom. A fighter to mention over here, former world champion, friend of the show, Lee Haskins. He obviously won a world title, lost it. He lost it to Ryan Bennett, didn't he? Decided to retire. Then he made a return to boxing. This will be his 40th fight. And it's a special one. It's an 8-rounder against Jordan Rodriguez, who's 8-4 with 2 draws. That's not the special part of it, not because he's boxing Jordan Rodriguez, but the special part is that Lee Haskins' very own son, Anton Haskins, is making his debut on the same card. So that's quite a bit of history making there. So all the best there to Lee Haskins and his son Anton. Anton Haskins, 4 rounds against Ibra Riaz, a journeyman with a record of 6 wins, 168 losses and 4 draws. I've got nothing against that. That's a cool little thing there. It reminds me a little bit of Oliver McCall and his son boxing on the same cards. Didn't Shane Mosley and his son do it as well? All the best there, though, to the Haskins family. Good people. Moving out now to the PAL Centre in Delaware, USA. 2 fights to mention over here. Friend of the show, Henry Hank Lundy, 29-8 with 1 draw, in search of win number 30. He's in an 8-rounder against Lewis May, who's 21-16 with 1 draw. Also on the bill, China's Fan Long Meng. That's the guy that beat Frank Buglioni, and then I think Frank Buglioni retired right after that. It was on a Monaco card. Fan Long Meng now 15-0. He's in an 8-rounder against Gilberto Rubio, who's 9-8. Moving out now to the Dort Federal Event Center in Michigan, USA. This one's in Flint, of course. It is the home of the legend, really, of the ladies' side of the sport. Clarissa Shields looking for win number 10. It's for the vacant WBO and vacant WBC Diamond Super Welterweight female world titles. She takes on Ivana Habazin, who's 20-3. This one, by the way, is actually being shown on Box Nation, so you might want to tune into that if you're still subscribing to Box Nation. It's on Box Nation, that one, the Clarissa Shields card, but there is one bad thing: it clashes with the Golovkin card, so you may not want to watch it live. Also on that card, very good prospect, Jerome Ennis, 23-0, brilliant fighter. He's looking like one to watch for the future. That's a 10-rounder. He's in against Damian Fernandez, 12-1. And finally, the MSG New York, USA, almost the adopted home of Gennady Golovkin, 39-1 Golovkin with 1 draw. He's searching for win number 40 here against the very good Sergei Derevianchenko, 13-1. Of course, Ayaz, the 1 loss came to Daniel Jacobs. It's for the vacant IBF and vacant IBO world middleweight titles. Talk to me and give me your prediction. Brilliant fight.
Oh yeah, definitely brilliant fight. It's going to to be fair, I think it's going to be a Golovkin win, and I think it's going to do very well. If I'm going to go with a win, I'm going to go with Golovkin to win by knockout.
Yeah, it's hard to look past that. He's got 35 KO wins from 39 wins. He's only won on points 4 times. Obviously, the two fights with Canelo, they don't count in that because that was a loss and a draw. But sensational fighter Golovkin. Looks like he may have lost it just a touch. Against Steve Rolls. Steve Rolls had a couple decent moments in that fight until he got knocked out, but Golovkin didn't really respect his power. Here, I think we will see a very motivated Golovkin because Derevianchenko, I should say, was a real good amateur. He's been around the block, definitely. He really was seasoned as an amateur. And, you know, against Jacobs, he had some brilliant moments. And I actually felt like that fight was a hell of a lot closer than what most people saw it. I mean, it was a split decision, so it was close. You know, one guy gave it to him, but I can't remember how I scored that. I remember having that real close. It might have been a draw on my card, or I might have just given it to Derevianchenko. Can't remember now, but I remember it's just in the back of my mind that was a super duper close fight on my card, and I felt like, you know, I felt a bit sorry actually for Derevianchenko. So this is a brilliant fight. You know, for those that don't know, I've seen a few people on Twitter saying things like, this guy's another bum for Golovkin to look good against. That is just absolute stupidity to even say that. So it should be a brilliant fight, but yeah, you know, Golovkin as a professional, his style is so suited to the pros. It's beautiful. You know, obviously he had a real extensive amateur career as well, so I think the edge is definitely with Golovkin. Be interesting to see what the bookmakers make of it in terms of the odds and stuff, but it's a super fight. You know, Derevianchenko, even though he's got that one loss, you know, he's only got 13 wins. He's such a brilliant fighter, so this could be real interesting. And do you know what? I'm interested to see what the price will be for an upset win, because I wouldn't write that off. You know, I can't write Derevianchenko off. He's a talent himself. Also on that bill, Ivan Baranchyk, 19-1, former world champion. He's in a 10-rounder against Gabriel Bracero. That's a former opponent of Paulie Malignaggi. That was one of Paulie Malignaggi's last ever fights. So Paulie Malignaggi beat him as well. So I think Baranchyk wins that one easy. Bracero has a record of 25-3 with one draw. So yeah, some good fights there. Let's quickly just discuss the predictions from last weekend, just quickly, because I almost forgot. Well, I did forget at the start. I went with Benavidez by knockout, so did the listeners, so we both gain a point there. Ayaz, you went with Benavidez on points, of course that didn't happen, and we all went with Spence to win on points, and that did happen. So 2 out of 2 for myself and the listeners, but just 1 point gained for you, Ayaz. And you said that you see Golovkin winning the fight by knockout, so do I, and the listeners, just to confirm, they went with Golovkin by KO as well, 67% with that, 19% Golovkin on points. Just very low percentages for Derevianchenko, 8% by KO and 6% on points. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a much closer fight than that. It's going to be very competitive, I feel, but I think Golovkin probably gets the knockout in the later part of the fight for me. Very interesting stuff, though. Definitely don't miss it. And remember, if you don't want to watch that, you can always watch Clarissa Shields on Box Nation, friend of the show. I'll be watching both somehow, by some way. But that is everything for the preview part of the show. Just before we wrap up, there is one last thing to do, of course, and that is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Islington icon, Mr. John Ryder. John, welcome back on the show.
Thank you for having me. I like the icon bit. I thought we could get a little collaboration with D-Squared there, maybe.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been announcing you as that for quite a while. That's what I always call you. I'm trademarking it anyway, so I'm not sure if you can use it.
That's it.
So, John, we last spoke back in May. It was just after, obviously, the Akawi win. There was quite a gap after that win up until your next move was announced. I think you were kind of waiting around a little bit yourself, not really knowing what was going on. Was it a bit of a frustrating period at all, John?
It was, yeah. I mean, it's coming off a career best win in Vegas, and then you sat around for months, sitting around scratching, you know, not knowing what's next, and just become a bit disillusioned with it, especially after such a good win.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there was talks of you and Eubank Jr. possibly getting it on. How close was that to actually happening, John, or was it just rumours?
No, it was. I believe it was definitely agreed on my part. I believe it was agreed on his part, but I just don't think ITV could secure a date for it.
Okay. And obviously, your next fight has now been announced. You'll finally get your world title shot. It's set for November 23rd. If anyone deserves a world title shot, it's you, John. You know, you've had a long, hard road to the title. You're finally now knocking at the door. How pleased are you to be this close to becoming a world champion, firstly?
I'm over the moon. You know what I mean? This hasn't been gifted. I've earned this. I deserve this shot. And it's a shot I believe I'm going to win. And people will say shock the world. I'm going to go for a bit of a Nate Diaz and say I'm not surprised. I mean, I've worked hard for this. This is years and years of graft and upset and sadness. You know what I mean, all coming into this fight.
And, you always hoped that you'd box the winner of Groves against Smith, even though you've had to wait over a year. You are finally fighting the winner of that fight. It's no secret that the size advantage is firmly with Callum. I'm guessing, John, that the idea here is to try and get on the chest of Smith, to try and put him under real pressure, to try and test that chin as well.
Yeah, it is. Smith's won their fight, so he's good all-rounder. You think because he's so big that he's no good up close, but he's got all the tricks in the book, mate. He's good. He can work to the body. He can work to the end. He's such long levers. He works well up close. So listen, I know what I'm up against. I know what a tough man I'm in for, but I just believe timing is everything in the sport, and I believe the timing is no better for me to become a world champion.
Yeah, the momentum that you've got is just unbelievable. Like I say, you've just wow. Since you've moved up in weight, I can't even really speak on it. It's the best improvement I've seen in world boxing. I've said it time and time again on this show, John. How do you see the fight actually playing out, though? Do you see the fight going into the second half of things, or do you not really envision that far?
Yeah, I do, because I believe that he's world champion for a reason. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to beat a nobody for the title. He's going to beat George Groves. Do you know what I mean? A good champion, and he's a good fighter. He's rarely put a foot wrong in his career so far, so he's not just going to go and lay down. It's going to be a tough night's work.
And this might sound like a strange question, but do you class yourself as an underachiever, John, or an overachiever? Because maybe it's best to ask this question after the fight, but, obviously struggling at British title level at middleweight, to think that you've gone on now to challenge for a world title after moving up in weight, to think of that back then would have just been crazy. And not to mention the list of wins that you've racked up over the past couple of years. Are you an underachiever? Are you an overachiever? Where do you see it? Or is it too early to really answer the question?
No, I think I've massively underachieved so far. I should have been outright British champion at middleweight, and just things didn't go my way. I had a tight loss to Billy Joe Saunders. Just done the weight wrong for Nick Blackwell fight. Didn't go my way. And then the attempt at super middleweight, which I believe I won. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of the things that we take the rough with the smooth, and who would have thought now, 2 years down the line from the Rocky Fielding defeat, that I'm in line to fight for the Ring Magazine title.
Yeah, like I say, your improvements have just been unspeakable. It's been amazing. But then when you do look at that fight with Rocky Fielding, that was just so close. It could have gone either way. And then to see what he obviously went on to do, he got the shot at Zoiga, which I know you badly would have wanted that shot. He got that, and then he went on to get the massive payday against Canelo, while you've kind of had to, fight these guys, like dangerous guys like a Sorokin, people like that. Hard fights, but you haven't really had the credit. And I'm pleased for you, because like I say, you've got that momentum. You're going into this fight, and the timing is right. You, I feel, are in your prime right now. Am I right in saying that, John?
Yeah, and the gutting thing is, I did get offered the Zoiga fight, but just the terms weren't right, and I would have been, having beaten him, I'd have been locked into a contract with the Salems. I don't believe that the Canelo fight would have come off for me, where I wasn't signed to promote at the time. So that didn't work out. But listen, everything happens for a reason in this sport, and I believe that I'm in a much better position now, and mentally and physically, that this is the time is right now for me to go and become world champion.
Absolutely. And I want to ask, did you get to see David Benavidez recapture his title on the weekend against Dirrell at all?
I've seen bits and bobs of it. I just feel like Dirrell went into a bit of a shell once he got that cut. I know it was a nasty cut, but I think that's what you see with the Dirrell brothers. They when the chips are down, they kind of start looking. They become very disillusioned with it, and they start looking for ways out.
And also, Billy Joe Saunders, now a world champion at 168. That's happened since we last spoke. As skillful as he is, John, some would say he's probably the weakest champion at 168 because the other champions are all looking so good. They're bigger than him physically. Where do you think he fits in out of the four champions? Obviously, everyone's still undefeated, the four champions.
No, you know what? He's obviously got to put Callum Smith number one, but I think Billy Joe's there. Listen, he does what he has to do. He's undefeated for a reason. He always finds a way. He's crafty. He's sometimes guilty of just doing enough to win, but listen, his enough is always more than what the opponent's giving. So he's doing something right. And I believe back under Dominic Ingle now, I think you see the best of Billy Joe Saunders.
We shall wait and see. Many, many, many brilliant fights at super middleweight to be made, yourself included in that mix for sure. And finally, the last real question for you, John. I'm asking this to everybody at the minute. AJ Ruiz, a huge shock on June the 1st. The rematch happens in December in Saudi. How do you see the fight playing out, in all honesty?
I just think AJ's going to recapture what was his. I don't believe he was truthfully right on that show, and I know he said everything went to plan and went right for him, but I just don't believe he looked himself walking into the ring. So it'll be interesting to see. I think he'll get him out there pretty comfortably. I think he might box a lot differently, but I think he's going to become a two-time world champion and recapture it.
Hopefully, fingers crossed for him. And finally, John, any closing words at all to our listeners before we let you go, my friend?
No, just thank you for the support. Always backing me all the way, and I think you're in for a treat November 23rd, and watch me do my thing.
Absolutely cannot wait. Listen, John, I want to thank you so much for giving me some of your time this week. Best of luck for November 23rd, and we'll certainly catch up sometime after the fight.
Definitely. Thanks for having me on again. I appreciate that we get it out there.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 207 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A massive thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the reigning WBO Super-Featherweight World Champion Jamel Herring, and the man that will be challenging for the WBA Super-Middleweight World title, John Ryder. Like I say, thank you so much to both guys for taking part in this week's show. I wish both men the very best of luck in their world title fights in November. A massive thank you to you also for listening to this week's show. That is to all of our listeners. The prediction league currently stands at myself in the lead on 17 points. Ayaz is on 11 points, and you, the listeners, are on 10. Enjoy your weekends, people. Remember, if you get a chance to leave us a review, please do it. The reviews on iTunes mean a great deal. Remember to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell a friend. Stay safe, everyone, over the weekend. Enjoy the boxing, enjoy the action, and we shall see you all again next week.